Hello, my name is Kirioth, and today I'm afraid we're going to talk about the Tau again, just a little bit. So the Warhammer Facebook page, the official Warhammer 40,000 Facebook page, sorry, they have released a little picture, a nice little, I was going to say infographic, I don't know if that's the right word, a nice picture with information on it, and it gives a little bit more detail as to the name of the thing, what the Tau are now using to get around the place. And it's kind of handy in that it describes all of the Tau expansions from the first and now the fifth sphere, which we'll go through all of them just quickly because they're on the thing, and it'll give a nice basis for some proper full-on speculation, like is what we like to do. There's also a minor correction from yesterday. I got confused as to what the actual warp skimming thing is that the Tau can do. It is FTL. I didn't think it was, but it is FTL. I've been corrected on that now. I kind of, the details were sort of lost to me, but they do already have FTL. It's just like, it's not as fast as going into the warp proper. You just skim it and then come out of it again. But it's not necessarily still a good thing due to the lack of Geller fields and the like, as we will find out from reading this here thing, what the official Facebook page put up. So, let us start from the top, from the first sphere. The Tau settle 8 worlds, including Town, Borkan and Viola, laying the foundations for their future empire. The expansion halts due to the vast distances they are forced to cross without access to faster-than-light travel. Second sphere. Following the invention of the ZFR Horizon Accelerator engine, which is a quality name, it's hilariously Star Trek and I love it, the Tau become capable of reaching near light speeds, finally crossing the Damocles Gulf and making contact with the Imperium of Man. Third sphere. With the Imperium forced to pull back their forces to confront other foes, the Tau and their allies surge from the Damocles Gulf and capture vast new domains, triggering their bloodiest war with the Imperium yet. I mean, the Imperium, that's the thing that didn't sit right with me. The Imperium was like, we'll just leave them alone for now. We've got bigger fish to fry. Never a good idea. Fourth sphere, this is the interesting one that I'd forgotten the details of. The Tau develop a device that allows them to pierce the fabric of reality itself and prepare a new expansion. The consequences are horrifying beyond the reckoning of this young species and suppressed by the ethereals. It goes bad, wrong, do not mess with the warp without a Geller field. That is not a good idea. It does not go well. Demons are not interested in the greater good, however they will eat your face. So, I mean, they learned. Well, the ethereals learned, the rest of them didn't learn because it got suppressed. Finally, fifth sphere, and this is the interesting one. This is the one I like. This is the one that is that we're going to be speculating about this because this could be any number of things, but I have my own ideas. Be interested to hear what you think as well. Fifth sphere, the Tau use the newly opened Startide Nexus to take their next expansion further than ever before. So they can get around. They now have the Startide Nexus, which, that's kind of a cool name. I quite like it. But the question really is, like, what is it? Because it could be anything, really. It sounds, to be honest, like a gateway more than anything else. It could well be some sort of reverse engineered thing like a webway gate. They might have found a way into the webway itself. I'm kind of leaning towards that, if I'm honest. The Tau don't strike me as a race that are likely to go, oh, that's alien tech, we're not messing with it. Frankly, they're smarter than that. The Imperium, for all that it's lasted for a long time, is not that smart. The Adeptus Mechanicus is so indoctrinated and so stuck in a rut to a frustrating degree that alien tech is just left alone as being heretical and against the foundations of what the Omnissiah desires and so on and so forth, unclean technology, all of that stuff. They're not happy about reverse engineering things, apart from Call, but Call is a madman and does whatever the fuck he likes, which is one of the reasons I actually kind of like him, even if he's nowhere near as fleshed out as he should be. A tech priest actually looking at Necron stuff and going, their ships are infinitely better than ours, we should probably work out why. I much prefer that attitude to, no, our ships are way better. Just because one of theirs destroyed 100 of ours doesn't mean that ours are worse. Go away. It's an annoying attitude, but that's the Imperium for you. The Tau don't strike me as being like that. They strike me as being much more prone to, frankly, tinker with stuff and mess with things. I mean, if they weren't prone to that, then they wouldn't have developed things like the Riptide and the Storm Surge, and they wouldn't have eschewed giant titans for, like, air superiority. I mean, a Titan is a fundamentally daft idea, which is why it's still kind of funny to me that the Eldar have them, when you could have something with just as much firepower that moves far quicker and is able to, like, descend from atmosphere as opposed to slowly walk very slowly towards a city, as opposed to just bombing it and then flying away. The Tau are not daft. They might be naive, they might be a little bit young, they might be blissfully unaware as to just how much of an absolute shithole the galaxy around them is, but they don't strike me as stupid. For me, the Startide Nexus really does seem like it would be something that has been reverse engineered. Either something to do with a webway gate, they've found a way into the webway itself. It could also be something to do with the old ones of the Necrons, for instance. I mean, it really doesn't seem to be beyond the realm of possibility that there would be some form of older tech that they would be able to mess with that isn't directly linked to the Eldar themselves. The name of it, to be honest, the fact that it's called a Nexus leads me to think that it's a hub, that it's not like a corridor. It's not like you go in this end and you come out that end. I mean, it's called the Startide Nexus. I would assume that would mean that there are multiple routes in and out of it, that when you go through, you have a choice as to where you're going to go, where you're going to end up, and you are able to return from it. That seems to be the most likely thing for me, which again kind of supports the webway idea. That is assuming, of course, that there is reverse engineering going on, that they have found some sort of gateway, some sort of portal that was built by one of the much older races, much older races, given that it's Tau, might as well be infinitely older at this point. But I suppose it is also possible that they could have constructed something themselves. Something that I think could be interesting is if it's actually nothing to do with, say, the Necrons, the old ones, or the Eldar. It would be interesting if they'd managed to actually find their way around the warp, or had found some sort of conduit through the warp itself that is not, I was going to say not affected by the warp, but safe passage, relatively. If they'd found some way to get through the warp itself, maybe through the rifts that have opened since the events of the Gathering Storm, if they'd managed to find something like that, that would be kind of interesting. I think that would be a bit more interesting to me than if it was a simple case of reverse engineering or adapting Eldar or Necron tech. I'd actually prefer it to be more rooted in the warp itself, because that could have a properly significant impact on the Tau in multiple ways. The way I'm looking at it is that if they've found a webway gate, they now have access to the webway, or at least a limited part of the webway, then they can come and go as they please. You know, they're safe from the warp, basically. The webway is not, it's not flawless. It's not as though there's no way for things to come to harm in the webway. That is still possible, but it's a damn sight safer than actually, entrusting yourself to the tides of the warp to try and get around. It's far safer than that. I would assume the same would be true of any sort of Necron tech or Old One tech that they might come across. That would be relatively safe in comparison to using the warp, which would mean that my complaints of the Tau being too small an empire to survive would be fixed, because they would be able to come and go, they'd be able to expand just a huge amount in a short amount of time and across a vast area of space, which would be kind of cool. But it would also take away the opportunity for more in the way of development for the race as a whole. It would take away the opportunity for more conflict for the race as a whole, and I always like to see more of that sort of thing. That's one of the reasons I was disappointed with the way the Primaris were introduced. As I say, as I've constantly said, I actually love the idea of Primaris. I love the models for Primaris. The way they were introduced didn't work. It was a catch-22, and either way was bad, but it was still not great. the Tau and for me, the way that there was the hint of chapters not accepting Primaries is one of the most interesting things. You know, the Dark Angels being distrustful, the Space Wolves not being interested. I liked the idea of the Primaries not being accepted by every chapter, but then that side of the story just never came to pass. Instead, every chapter just basically went, yeah, that's fine, and then just accepted it. It missed out on so many elements of storytelling that you could do with regards to the old feeling threatened or you know, feeling as though they're being replaced by the new, but that never transpired. Now with the Tau, if they did find Webway, Necron, Old One, whatever tech, and were able to just get around however they liked without fear of the warp, yeah, that would fix one of the issues that I have with the race as a whole, with the Tau Empire as a whole. If they were forced to use the warp itself, if they'd found a series of channels or corridors or conduits through the warp, but were still being affected by it, were still suffering the effects of, even if it's like just a weaker kind of infiltration by the warp itself, that would be far more interesting, because that would open up more in the way of conflict. It would open up more in the way of changes to the race as a whole. It would actually kind of slingshot the Tau from being this naive kind of young race into being a race that is trying to essentially keep hold of their identity in a galaxy that they now know is fundamentally hostile, right down to the fabric of reality, or unreality as it is. It would be much more interesting in a narrative way if the Tau had created the Startide Nexus as a way of travelling through the warp itself, as opposed to simply bypassing it. That being said, I don't think that's the most likely explanation. I mean, to me, the most likely one is the Webway. They've managed to create a way to get into the Webway themselves, which would make sense for it being called a Nexus. I think that's probably what's going to happen, but I would actually prefer it to be warp-based, for the shenanigans that would occur, obviously. Question is, what do you think? I mean, there's not a lot to go on. This is all speculation, obviously. This is just talking out loud about a sort of new plot point from which we have no further info, but that's half the fun of 40k, speculating on stuff we don't really know about yet. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think it is just a way into the Webway? Do you think it could be something to do with the old ones and the Necrons, maybe some sort of travel network that up until now we haven't really known about? Or do you think it might be that the Tau are finally immersing themselves in the warp proper and have simply found a way to mostly protect themselves from it? Be interested to hear what you think, because I like stuff like this. So let me know in the comments below. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching. Feel free to click any of the videos, the subscribe, the Patreon thing that's on the screen in front of you, and click them if you like. Don't click them if you don't want to, and I will see you for the next one. Toodaloo.